So you've hopefully been surviving some raids, collecting lots of loot, and maybe you just bought the game and are relatively new. But no matter how experienced you are or which edition of the game you purchased, Tarkov is a game where you endlessly collect loot and everyone needs to manage their stash space. In this video, we're going to go over several tips and tricks to do just that. Let's start with some of the basics. You can infinitely stack backpacks inside of each other. This is something that will likely change in a future patch, but for the time being and for the last 3-ish years this game has been in beta, you can stack them inside of each other. I've always made sure to squeeze every single pack into my largest, just to make sure we're maximizing space as much as possible, and then you also want to fill all the gaps in between as best you can. The concept kind of reminds me of those little Russian wooden dolls that stack inside of each other. An EFT takes place in Russia and is developed by a Russian team. Oh my god. Tip number 2, which is somewhat along the same lines, make sure you're utilizing the inner space of your chest rigs. Almost every chest rig in the game has more inventory spaces inside of it than it actually takes up. For example, this MK3 chest rig is taking up 12 inventory slots, but holds 20 on the inside, so I'm gaining 8 inventory slots by keeping this rig full while I'm not using it. The TV110 rig also takes up 12 slots but holds 23 inside, gaining me 11 extra slots when full. It also has the added benefit of having 2 different 2x2 spaces, which is great for holding slightly larger items like helmets or grizzly medkits. Most of the other rigs in Escape from Tarkov will net you extra space, but not all of them, so just take a peek at what you have and consider hanging on to some of the larger ones for extra storage. Another quick tip for saving space is try to keep all your loose ammunition inside of magazines that you intend to use later on. Let's talk about guns and attachments. There's a whole lot you can do with these to break them down or build them back up in certain ways to save space. For example, with the AKs, if you have anything with a folding stock, you just right click and hit fold, and it'll make the gun a little smaller as you fold. Hotkey for that though is if you mouse over and just hit the middle mouse button to do this a little faster. It's pretty handy in raids when you're looting. You can actually do the same thing to identify all those items you'll have to inspect rather than hitting right click inspect. Save yourself some time that way. Next, with most of the full size guns, if you take out the magazine and the pistol grip, it's gonna flatten right out. So now you're saving 1 extra space this way. And if you don't plan on using this gun soon, you can actually just sell this pistol grip and the magazine and just buy them again from level 1 proper, and that'll save you a lot of inventory space if you don't want these 3 slots used up. Just remember to empty the ammo out first before you do something like that. Then with suppressors, most of them take up 2 slots, but when it's on a gun that's only 1 cell wide or 1 cell long like this, you can it actually ends up only taking up 1 extra slot. See, it's taking up 5 with the suppressor on it, or it's 4 plus 2, so 6 without. So you're saving 1 slot by putting the suppressor onto the gun rather than keeping it loose. Another neat thing you can do is if your AK or similar has a handguard like this B10M, or like the one that's already on it, which is the CAA RS47. These can both hold a foregrip on the bottom, another sight, a reflex sight on top, and then lasers and flashlights on the side. You can actually just pile 4 different 1-slot attachments right onto that same gun. Obviously I wouldn't use it in a raid this way, but all 5 of those attachments, or excuse me, all 4 of those attachments are now just on the gun, not taking up any extra space at all. Now if you have something like an SKS, the same applies. You can't take off a pistol grip, but as you can see, it's a 10-slot gun. If you pull the mag out, suddenly it's 5 plus 2, so now you're only taking up 7 slots instead of 10. Then this OPSKS has a dovetail mount, so if you do have something like this PSO scope that's taking up 2 slots, but if I put it on the gun, it's not taking up any extra room at all now. The same kind of idea down here with this MP9. You just take the magazine out, hold the stock, boom, it's only 2 slots now instead of 6. And same thing, I could sell the magazine until I'm ready to use it and buy them again if I really need the space, or just save it, but at least this way it's down to 4 rather than 6 like it was before. Now another really neat trick, that I think this may get fixed at some point, but even so, if you pick up the XRSU47SU, I know it's a lot, but the tactical handguard for AKS-74U. Now this thing takes up 2 slots, but it has spots for 2 different sights, 2 different slots for lasers and flashlights, and 1 for a foregrip. You can actually slap on this 2-slot Valde, a 1-slot reflex in front of it. Got flashlight. I think we have the laser on here. Slap that on, and foregrip. So now all this stuff is only taking up 2 slots, and if you actually put the entire thing onto a regular AKS-74 gas tube, it actually goes down to 1 slot, which is kind of crazy. Because this is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 or 9 slots worth of space dropped down to just 1. So that's a pretty interesting little thing you can do. Now, any gun that has a rail on top, it's kind of the same idea as putting the PSO on this SKS up here. You take your little 2-slot Valde, for example, and just slap it on. It's not taking up any extra room. But the smaller you can make your guns, the better, and the better they'll fit inside cases. You can fit a whole bunch of stuff in here when it's all flattened out like this. Speaking of cases, there's a whole lot of different kinds that'll help condense your stash. Rather than go over each and every one here, I've actually already got a video out called The Storage Containers of Tarkov, which I'll link at the end of this video. Just as a quick tip, one of the earliest ones I'd recommend going for is the Lucky Scav Junk Box. This one takes up 16 slots, but it holds 196 slots of trade items. You can get this from Therapist Level 2. It's going to cost a little over 1,000,000 rubles, which I know probably sounds like a lot of money to newer players, but it's definitely worth the investment in the long run. You're netting a total of 180 slots in your stash for this thing. Now, another cool thing you can do to save stash space involves item insurance. As a quick recap so we're all on the same page, you have the option to insure any non-consumable item on your PMC before you go into a raid. What I mean by consumable is you won't get back things like ammunition, medical items, food, drinks, and grenades, but you'll get back anything else that another player does not extract with. The return time depends on who you choose to insure with. Prapper costs less than therapists and will return items typically between 24 and 36 real-time hours after the raid you died in ends. Therapist costs a bit more, but will return your items within 12 to 24 hours. Once you receive a message saying your insured gear has been returned, you have 72 hours to collect it, so you don't have to grab it all at the beginning of your play session, although you may be tempted to do so. Instead, I highly recommend gearing your PMC up starting with whatever insurance items you can use up first and filling the gaps in your loadout as needed. This way, the vendors are holding onto your items for you in a separate inventory while you're running a few raids rather than clogging up your stash space. Each separate insurance return will have a visible timer on it in your messages section, so it'll be easy to keep track of and also to know which insurance returns to try and use up first. When you receive quest rewards for doing tasks for the vendors, you can do the same thing and leave them in the message screen rather than collecting them right away. And unlike insurance returns, quest rewards never expire, so there's really no rush to grab them unless you intend to use them or sell them right away. One last little tidbit I have for you is that while most backpacks fit perfectly inside additional copies of themselves, leaving no extra space around the edges, the Beta 2 actually leaves 5 open slots per additional Beta 2 inside. So you technically could infinitely stack these and gain 5 slots for each one. Now they go for around 50,000 rubles on the flea market, so it's not exactly super cost effective, but if you plan to run this backpack anyway, this is a really good way to save some extra space. You could store extra quest items or a rifle down below. One nice thing about this backpack is that it only has a 10% speed penalty, and it's pretty small. It has like a small profile if you were prone on the ground. It doesn't like make you giant like the Attack 2 backpack does, or like this new enormous friggin' thing. And it's green, so it blends well with bushes and foliage, of course. I hope you guys have been enjoying the video and are finding these tips useful. If you have any further tips to add or any suggestions or corrections, please let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to catch me when I'm live, I stream raids on Twitch several nights a week and love it when you guys drop by, so I'll leave a link for my channel in the description. I really enjoy making videos for newer and intermediate players, and if you have any suggestions or requests for a future video topic, I'd love to hear about that in the comments as well. Lastly, if you need any help or have questions about the game, feel free to hit me up on Discord or ask any of our community members. The link for that can be found in the description as well. Thank you for watching and stay safe out there. Oh, you gotta be kidding! Nice shot, dude. You heard me coming.